Monsieur le Président,
President, dear Volodymyr, ministers, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure and an honor to receive once again in Paris President Zelensky. Thank you, dear Volodymyr, for being here. And through you, France is sending the whole of the Ukrainian nation a message of friendship and support, which is clear and unambiguous. We are and will remain resolutely at the side of Ukraine. It is in the best interests of the European continent and our security. For more than 3 years, Ukraine has been waging a battle that goes beyond its own borders. This fight is the fight for freedom against oppression, the fight for rights against brutality. And indeed, we are in a new era, and the aggressivity of Russia is not only a challenge to the global order and the stability of the world, but it also has a direct impact on our security in Europe. Since a few weeks, we are in a decisive phase to put an end to Russia's war of aggression. And I commend here the initiative taken by President Trump aiming at, as soon as possible, first reducing and then putting an end to the hostilities with a sequencing, and that should help us reach a robust and lasting peace that guarantees security of Ukraine and the stability of our continent. And over the past few weeks, we had regular exchanges with you, dear Volodymyr, Mr. President, as well as with President Trump and many colleagues who will be here together with us tomorrow. In Jeddah, on the 11th of March, Ukraine has clearly expressed their agreement to a complete ceasefire without preconditions for a period of 30 days, even though Ukraine is the victim of the aggression. We are awaiting a similar commitment by Russia. Over the past few days, the United States exchanged, thanks to the hospitality of our Saudi friends, whom I would like to thank, exchange with Russia and Ukraine in order to begin to put an end to the strikes against energy infrastructure to begin with and to work on a ceasefire in the Black Sea. These measures can be a first step towards a broader ceasefire, opening the path to building a peace that guarantees the security of Ukraine, even though I note today that Russia is always tempted to rewrite or reinterpret what was discussed or agreed, adding new conditions. Far from proving that it really wants peace, Russia continues, de facto, day after day, to strike intensively the Ukrainian territory, including civilian targets. These strikes, we condemn them, and they must stop immediately. Mr. President, you took the risk of peace by agreeing a 30 days ceasefire on civilian infrastructure at sea, on land, and in the air. But Russia expressed its willingness to continue with its aggression and to continue the war. On the occasion of the latest European Council, we took some major decisions, and the approach peace by force is the one we will continue to follow. And this is the reason why the discussions we're having and that we will continue to have later on tonight and the summit tomorrow, aiming at a robust and lasting peace for Ukraine, will enable us to deal with a number of issues. First and foremost, immediate support to Ukraine. We must continue. It is necessary to continue to support Ukraine for it to resist. And I announced today an additional 2 billion euros of military support by France to Ukraine. As you know, from the beginning, France has been providing capacities that meet the Ukrainian armed forces' priority needs. But we are working on new resources, including anti-tank Milan missiles, air defense equipment like the Mika missiles that equip the Mirage 2000 jets delivered, as well as ground-to-air Mistral defense missiles, as well as VAB armored vehicles, as well as AMX 10 RC tanks and drones and munitions. We're also working on satellite assistance and intelligence assistance. And that will be as well, will come together with some partnerships that will enable to produce some of these equipments in Ukraine. This 2 billion euros of support is part of our the overall package, and we will tomorrow mobilize our other partners to continue to support Ukraine. The second element of the discussion will be a lasting ceasefire, and we'll make sure that it can be monitored and respected. That will be a major part of the work we will be conducting tomorrow with our European colleagues. We will work on this sequencing. In the short run, a ceasefire that can be measured and controlled, and next, discussions toward a long-term solution. We will also work on discuss the Ukrainian armed forces, because once a peace agreement is entered into, it will be important that the Ukrainian armed forces are in a position and strong enough to be able to resist in case of another attack. And tomorrow we will be working on that issue as well. The fourth element will be dealing with the guarantees, reassurance for. We will not, this reassurance force will not be on the front line, but as a second curtain in order to help deter another Russian aggression. We will also work on make sure that we continue to achieve progress on the planning of solid options. So as you can see, the purpose is very much to enable Ukraine to resist on the ground, resist the Russian aggression, but also to build the credible elements of this lasting peace. And here I would like to say loud and clear once again that France will continue to stand by Ukraine in consultation with the Americans and together with our European partners and allies. Like I said, over the past few weeks, I've been so many times in touch with President Zelensky, President Trump, and we've been working closely together with our British partner as well. We've been working hand in hand with them, as well as our major European partners who will be together with us tomorrow here. And I would like to be very clear tonight. Russia shall have no right of say regarding the support we are providing and will provide Ukraine, nor shall Russia set the conditions for this sustainable, lasting peace, because it is about Ukraine and it is about the security of all Europeans. Mr. President, dear Volodymyr, it's again a privilege to have you with us tonight. You embody the resistance of a people that doesn't want to bend against the unacceptable in the face of brute force. And this resistance commands the respect of all the Europeans, of all French people, because we are well aware that it is also about our own security. This is the reason why you can count on France's commitment by your side. Ukraine deserves peace. And I remember you here in December 2019 on the occasion of a discussion with President Putin and Chancellor Merkel. And on that occasion, I could see how much you were fighting. And I will not allow anyone to rewrite history. There's only one aggressor and one resistant. And Russia is the aggressor, and you're the one resisting. And there is no other choice than that of history, compliance with international law, and our own security. Thank you for being here, and we'll be there as well.
Дякую дуже за підтримку. Дякую дуже.
Thank you very much for this support. Thank you, dear Emmanuel, for your friendship and your support to Ukraine. Dear President, ladies and gentlemen, dear France, first and foremost, I would like to thank you personally, Emmanuel, as well as the whole of France, for a constant support and very sensitive support granted to Ukraine. We very much appreciate having a friend like you, Emmanuel, like France. Today, there are many things to be done for the security of Europe, for all of our citizens, together with France and all of our partners in Europe and around the world. It is a decisive moment for the world. The way today the leaders design the security in Europe will impact many other generations. And we're working on the protection against the Russian aggression for a lasting peace and for the security in Europe. Today, with the President of France, we work on bilateral issues, but we also are preparing for our meeting tomorrow with our other friends and European partners. And every time we meet, our discussions become ever more concrete, and our cooperation with this coalition of the willing aims at defending our peoples and our collective security. Please allow me to underline the efforts undertaken by President Macron and France to help us defend ourselves against the Russian strikes. Like I said, like I told you already, it is already your Mirage jets, our Mirage jets, those that were manufactured in France. And I would like to thank you for these aircraft. They're already a key element of our air defense system, and they help us defend against the Russian jets and drones and other flying objects. So thank you very much for these jets. Thank you for everything you're doing. We've been talking about the situation on the front. We will continue to talk about our concrete needs and how to put an end to this war. Thank you for this new support package for the Ukrainian armed forces. It's been presented already by President Macron, Emmanuel, 2 million euros. And our ministers for defense will keep working on these issues. Next, you're well aware of our discussions with the Americans, what took place in Saudi Arabia over the past few days. The Ukrainian and American delegations talked about the ceasefire, the energy infrastructure, and other matters, and the monitoring of the ceasefire. Regarding the Black Sea, that was discussed as well, the situation is more complex. There are discussions as to the preconditions, and we hope that the Americans will insist for an unconditional silence above the Black Sea. Regarding this silence on the ground, in the air, and at sea, at the moment, Russia is refusing this unconditional ceasefire that shows that Russia is not ready to put an end to this war. So we shall continue to exert pressure on Russia. It is certainly not the time to weaken our pressure or unity. We need more concerted measures in order to bring peace, a fair and stable peace. The sanctions against Russia shall remain and be increased as long as Russia is occupying Ukraine. Any attempt by Russia to continue with this war requires a response. This is the only language, the language of force, that is being understood by Moscow. Accordingly, Europe, the United States, the entire world needs to be strong to defend itself and to defend the interests of peace. Thank you, and I'm grateful to all of those who in Europe who are helping Ukraine to defend itself and also helping us in bringing peace and stability. It is important that each European country can increase its defense potential. There are technological aspects and other elements. The more is being produced in Europe, the better for Europe. And thank you very much for these partnerships aiming at co-producing equipment in Ukraine. We already discussed this together with Emmanuel. We will work on increasing our own production. This applies to artillery, air defense systems. We already looked at these issues in detail. And of course, we bet on diplomacy. But only diplomacy based on force can be strong. And such is the purpose of our work and of our discussions tomorrow. We're expecting some new and strong decisions. The time has come to agree security guarantees and to address all of these concrete issues, contingents, and together with the President of France today, we decided to task our teams to work on these concrete issues. Once again, I would like to thank all of those helping us, and once again, you personally, dear Emmanuel. Thank you, France, and long live Ukraine.
Bonsoir, messieurs les présidents. Une question.
Sir, a question as to what you're expecting from the Europeans tomorrow regarding the reassurance forces, how to reassure Ukraine, and as well regarding how to make sure that the ceasefire will be complied with. One of your advisors has said today that said we do not want a peace force. We want soldiers ready to fight. And do you trust what the Americans are saying, and do you trust their support? And can Ukraine continue to wage war without the American military support? Now a question for President Macron. Sir, you too talked about a reassurance force. What do you have to say to this Ukrainian advisor who said we do not want a peacekeeping force, we want soldiers who stand ready to fight? So what is this? Is it about a peacekeeping force or soldiers? And you said they would not be on the front line, but a second curtain, but would they be possibly fighting as well? Thank you. I'm being told that we would take one question, but there were like 3 or 4 questions in one. So regarding tomorrow, like Emmanuel said already, and I fully agree with them on this agenda, it is about strengthening Ukraine today and tomorrow as well. There are different packages, a strategy in the hands of each partner, and this is not ready to be made public. But regarding the support to Ukraine and the security guarantees, well, tomorrow we will be discussing some of these issues. Our chief of staff have been discussing these issues, troops, how many, where, etc. Over the past few weeks, what is feasible, what is not feasible for them. It is not an easy infrastructure to agree upon. There will be tomorrow many countries represented, and I think the most important issue is to find out who stands ready to commit. So today it's too early for me to talk about what contingents would agree to do. I'm surprised by your comment. I very much would like to know who this advisor is. It's must be someone very senior talking about contingents. But clearly no one wants this war to drag on or to involve any other country. Contingents are important, but their task would be to monitor, to train as well, and to prevent any desire by intention by Russia to launch new attacks or aggressions. as to how they would be equipped at sea, on the ground, or in the air. It is too early to say. Regarding the our trust in the United States, well, we had a number of discussions, including in Saudi Arabia, that enabled to unlock the American support that we need. I would not talk about our needs in terms of percentages, but everything helps when you're fighting the Russian aggression. Now, when it comes to intelligence sharing, it is needed first and foremost to protect our civilians against strikes, as well as against energy infrastructure, civilian infrastructure. And intelligence is also necessary for our troops. Some major progress has been achieved. President Trump unlocked some of it, and we're grateful. It is meaningful. And we also believe that America will be strong enough to lead Putin to accept an unconditional ceasefire. Thank you.
La Russie veut quoi? Conquérir le maximum?
What does Russia want? To occupy as many Ukrainian territories as possible. And Ukraine, of course, wants to free its territories. So there will be some very difficult discussions, but at the end of the discussions, there will inevitably be a front line with occupied territories. We know that. Given this situation, we need a mechanism to make sure that this ceasefire is complied with, or at least monitored, so it can either be an ad hoc mechanism with satellites, you can see who is doing what, or the OSCE, as was the case before. This is not what the president would like, but we will be discussing it tomorrow. Or it could also be a mandate, a UN mandate, with peacekeeping force with an ad hoc operation. This is not what we're talking about when we talk about security guarantees, and it's important not to mix these concepts. On the front line, there will be no European forces. The front line to be agreed during the discussions. On both sides of the front line, you will have the Russian army and the Ukrainian army. And as soon as a temporary ceasefire is agreed, there will be discussions for a lasting peace. And on that occasion, there will be discussions on the monitoring and the way to control the ceasefire. It will be discussed tomorrow. It's not for us to decide. That could be within the context of a UN peacekeeping mandate. But when it comes to guaranteeing security, which is different from maintaining peace, but guaranteeing security means that given that Russia kept attacking Ukraine, how to make sure that we do not repeat the mistakes that were made before. We need a strong Ukrainian army. As a matter of fact, today, the Ukrainian army is the first one in Europe. So what is the format? What are the capacities of the Ukrainian army that will enable it to deter yet another aggression by Russia or to resist such an aggression? So this is about training, it is about the capacities, it is about providing European support, because this is the forefront of our European security. So once again, this is different from a peacekeeping operation. And what we are also working upon so that our Ukrainian friends have the cards, it is security guarantees or reassurance. It means that based on national decisions, and that will depend on incoming discussions, President Zelensky, will have to say where he would like foreign armed forces to be, not on the front line, not to be facing Russian forces, but present where they can help deter Russia from attacking once again. And being there on strategic spots means that we would, by doing so, express our support, also be able to provide training, and clearly say that if there were to be yet another overall aggression against Ukraine, these armies would also be attacked. And when we have soldiers, when we deploy our soldiers, they stand ready to react when they are in a position of conflict. And the situation in Ukraine is not different from what was done in other countries before. So it's a peaceful approach, and the only ones that might launch another conflict would be Russia if they were to launch another attack. So this is what we're currently working upon. There is a draft prepared by France and the United Kingdom. Our chiefs of staff have been discussing it, and we will continue to work on this. And to be frank, this is in the hands of Ukraine and the Europeans in the negotiations that will come. Good evening. The Kremlin reported on the discussions, and we hear that they want the sanctions against Russia to be lifted if there were to be a ceasefire on the Black Sea. What do you think, President Macron, as well as your European colleagues? Did you talk about this Russian demand? You're in close contact with the Americans as well, and where does France stand regarding this requirement, this demand formulated by Russia? And now a question to President Zelensky. What is the reaction of Ukraine to these new Russian demands? Do you have something else to request in return?
On a dit tout et n'importe quoi sur la mer Noire.
First of all, today we've heard everything and anything about the Black Sea. If the Black Sea is a theater of is the place of battles, and the only one that threatened international trade in the Black Sea, all of that is the responsibility of Russia. So we had to reroute, and Turkey played a key role in this respect. So when I hear some saying that the Europeans would be responsible for this situation in the Black Sea, this is totally false. Well, moving forward is a good thing. President Zelensky accepted a ceasefire at sea, on the ground and in the air. But only if Russia also agrees, and that would only be temporary and then a possibility to discuss negotiation and a robust and lasting peace. So I agree to the concept of peace by force presented by President Trump. And I know President Trump is coherent, and that peace by force does not mean lifting sanctions immediately without receiving anything. At the moment, what I can see is a country that was attacked, a country that nonetheless is agreeing a 30 days ceasefire, and the aggressor not doing anything, and we would be lifting sanctions? Makes no sense. The issue of the lifting of the sanctions will come in due course in the context of a settlement of a lasting and robust peace, but it's far too early to do that. And if Russia tomorrow says that they respect international borders, sanctions will be immediately lifted. It is only in the hands of Russia. If Russia complies with international law, the sanctions will be lifted.
Що
Thank you for your question. We consider that it is too early at the moment to release or lift the part or all of the sanctions. We talked about it with our American partners as well as Asian countries and the European Union. And to the contrary, we're preparing and working on new packages of sanctions as long as Russia is not willing to put an end to this war. We need an extra package of sanctions as long as they do not agree to put an end to the war. When the matters that were discussed in Saudi Arabia with the Americans, on that occasion, the sanctions were not on the agenda. So, in our bilateral discussions, we talked about a ceasefire at sea and in the air. We talked about exchanging prisoners and military personnel and the return of children. We also talked about putting an end to any strike against civilian infrastructures. Our American partners seemed to support us, but they did not receive in return a green light by Russia. So this is the reason why the issue of sanctions was not mentioned in Saudi Arabia. And someone may have talked about it elsewhere.
De Bloomberg, une question pour le
Question to President Macron by Bloomberg. You talked about a 2 billion euro support package. Can you tell us more about it and when it will be made available? And I would like to get back to the question asked by my colleague. Can we today trust the American administration? They talked about a quick deal, but today they seem to be working on a partial ceasefire. Well, I can't point fingers at the American administration. They're working on, they took an initiative, they're working on a robust and lasting peace, and that is good. And we all have a role to play, and that's what we've been doing for a number of weeks. We are in permanent contact with the Americans so that the security conditions in the long run for Ukraine, as well as ourselves, are taken into account. And we do have to do our own work. There are the four issues that we will be discussing tomorrow that I already mentioned. But as long as there is no ceasefire, we shall continue to support Ukraine resisting. We shall also work on every detail of the ceasefire and its compliance, be it the temporary ceasefire or the long or term ceasefire, and work also on the security guarantees. And it's too early to answer your question. We are committed. We presented our demands, and we are moving forward. And anything that can contribute to peace is a good thing. So I will not be pointing fingers. Regarding the 2 billion package, the ministers will tell more. But we have in our own stocks some equipment that we can deliver. And we keep buying equipment through our military programming law. This is what we've been doing with the Mirage jets. So we're speeding up. And anything that we make available, if it is useful to Ukraine, we're offering it. And we know, given that we've been working together for a number of years now, we know what is useful to them. So we have a full block, a first block of equipment that can be quickly delivered for a number of millions. Armed vehicles, missiles, Caesar cannons. This is being produced by our industry. We purchased this equipment. This is part of our war economy. And some of this equipment will be available very soon, and we have a timeline, and we set priorities depending on the needs. And then we have also some satellite capabilities, and we have co-production projects with the same cash. We're working on producing drones to speed up as well, and this is very much being worked upon by our ministers. We're making sure that our industry can go to Ukraine and produce together. It is cheaper and closer to the theater of operations. So this is what we will be doing with the 2 billion that I mentioned. This is the end of the press conference.